what kind of activism does your commitment to be critical of inequality, to overcome it, where does that take you? What are you doing?
So one of the things we've done in Dallas and that we started also in Nashville is to hold a meeting open to the public, and a worker rights board hearing is what we call it. It's something Jobs with Justice has done all over the nation, and we've picked it up in Dallas. And that gives, so we give workers an opportunity to tell their story to the community and to educate people on, you know, what's going on, why are Walmart workers not able to make ends meet, or construction workers, or others. We've even had you know, people from organized labor speak, and so that's one thing we've done to just to educate people about what's going on. And when they hear stories from, you know, from workers themselves, it's different than, you know, if they hear it from us.
Is this working? I mean, do you get people to come to these meetings, to participate in an ongoing way? In other words, is this an effective way to begin to build change?
I think it is. It's an effective way to get dialogue going. We also invite people, community leaders from, you know, City Hall or our state leaders to come and hear these stories, because oftentimes, you know, our elected officials don't really know what's going on. So, we think it is an effective way.
And the faith part of that is the question, you know, what role are you playing in that story? Oftentimes these workers are not ever given credit for playing a role in any story. So here, first of all, we're telling the story, or they're telling their story, what difference they're making in the world. The fact that there is production is actually based with the workers. Somebody who produces is a working person. Somebody who manages has a role too, but it's the workers who ultimately make that difference. To hear those stories, to hear some of the struggles that they're going through, to take that seriously. And we've done a lot of this work in the South, so we talk about Dallas, we talk about Nashville, there are other places, but a lot of the working people that we're working with are people of faith. And so for them to see that what they're talking about, what they're experiencing in the bulk of their waking hours has to do with their faith is something that's pretty powerful, because they realize they actually matter. You know, they play a role in the world, they matter to God. Now here comes a theological piece. This may be surprising, because when people then think about God, you know, what do people have in mind? How do people envision God? In the ancient world, God was oftentimes envisioned in terms of a ruler, right? A king, a lord, an emperor. Today, you know, when you think of God, people think of God maybe as a powerful person, perhaps a CEO even, but do you ever think of God as a worker? Now, those things we are discussing with working people, and for them it's not that hard to see that God may actually be more like a worker than a CEO.
Maybe a carpenter.
There's the Jesus story, right? So this is something that should be fairly easy to understand for Christians, even though it takes a little time to interpret. But this is why, you know, these Christians in Oklahoma that you mentioned earlier, for them it was very natural to understand that Christianity might be related to socialism. Why? Well, because this is something that their sacred books talk about. But take it back one step further. There's the old story of the Exodus, right? This is the Hebrew slaves in Egypt, and then you have the Pharaoh and you have Moses. Now, these stories are in common to Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And what's so amazing here is that God takes the side of the working persons. You know, God is the one who not only liberates, but, you know, is active in production, you know, later on, you know, finding a way of life that's more egalitarian, no longer slavery. You know, those things are stories that are part of people's legacies, people's heritage, and we don't have to bring this to them. They're already there, and all we have to do is, you know, help them see what's already there and make use of that for sort of a positive change in their own lives and in the communities.
Yeah, I'm struck in listening to you that for many years in many parts of the world, a worker in a capitalist enterprise was referred to as a wage slave. someone who's enslaved to the wage system. If you actually took that literally, then you might be celebrating a religion that was formed out of a protest against slavery. Well, then it becomes logical to be protesting against wage slavery too.